afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Outer Realm, the spin off version, I guess, of the main show, The Outer Realm, on Wednesday and Thursday nights. We are still broadcasting live right here in the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. Today, of course, we've advertised this and I've super been looking forward to it. And it's been coming up a lot lately. So there must be a huge interest just sort of floating around out there. But little people, the legend of the little people, that's coming up a lot. And Bigfoot seems to be a big theme as well. So we're very fortunate that Mary Joyce is here to join us. And she's going to be informing us and discussing with us on some of her personal experiences, as well as her vast amount of knowledge that she has on just about everything. She's definitely somebody who I love to sit across and spend a good productive 90 minutes with. So without further ado, Mary Joyce, hello.
Hi, how you doing? You look spunky.
Funky?
That looks spunky, not
funky. Oh,
full of energy.
Yeah, I don't have much of that. So
well, you look energetic to me.
Oh boy, I'm trying, Mary. I'm trying. It's a rainy day here today, so I'm very laid back and just chilling, and I always find that the intro too is just so, it's just relaxing. I love it. I just roll with it and I feel peaceful and
all right.
I know. Here we are. So people are chiming in. So thank you guys all for starting. This is great. Little people. There we go. It begins. So today, it's been a while since you've been on. We had so much fun the last time you were on talking about,
And that's all my fault. My life got all messed up there for a while and I couldn't do shows. So I'm glad to be back and talking with you.
Oh, pleasure.
A long time ago.
Oh, well, I always say, you have an open door with us. So anytime, I'm sure we'll book you again because you just have such an array of things to talk about. And this one, it's like I was saying in the beginning, there seems to be a lot coming up again with little people. I don't know if people are just having more experiences or if there's just a renewed interest. But, we've also just brought on a show onto the network, which is hosted by a couple of really awesome gentlemen from the Navajo Nation. So it's starting to slowly, come up again. And people are just like, wait, we want to know more about this sort of thing. So the timing is perfect.
I have to tell you this, and I don't think many authors would do this. If I were to do my book again, it would have a different title. The title is called Cherokee Little People Were Real. Well, after I came out with the book, a lot of Cherokee found out that I was open to the whole idea, so they suddenly would start to talk to me. We still have Cherokee little people around here. And I did not know that at the time that I did the book. And now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of information in the book. I sound like I'm bad-mouthing my own book. But the things I've heard since then are really interesting, and maybe it would be a fun way to start.
I think so. Let's, it's your show. I always, you've heard me say, even the last time you were on, it's your show. Wherever you want to start, let's roll with it and let's just have some good, informative fun.
Well, my experience is the Cherokee are not going to share stories with you unless they really trust you. Right. And I've always had some kind of connection that's connected me to the person who's finally willing to talk to me. And one gal who became friends with me was a waitress at one of the restaurants. And she said, there's a Cherokee woman who is also a waitress here. And she has interactions with the little people. Well, It took her a very long time to convince this gal to talk to me. And she finally did. And she left me with a couple, what I think are cute stories. And one of them, she went down to visit her aunt and uncle who live in Snowbird. Now, Snowbird there are more full-blooded Cherokee in Snowbird than there are on the reservation here in North Carolina. More of them have the old ways. And one of the old ways is they will put out food for the little people. And I've heard several times that if they forget to put the food out, suddenly there will be pebbles thrown on the roof as if to remind them, hey, you forgot us. Well, she was down there with her aunt and uncle, and they're the kind that would feed the little people. And at this point, she wasn't totally convinced this was happening. And uh, her uncle said, "Well, wait, and I'll show you." And he went out and he put flour all over the front deck or the porch, or I don't know exactly what it was, but
Yeah.
it was covered with flour. And in the morning, there were little footprints all over where the little people had come up to get the food that they left for them. And so that was one of her stories. And a second story she told me was she and her family had a place where they would have like family reunions. And it was up in the high mountains in a place called Big Cove.
Mhm.
And they kept a small trailer there that would be like to fix things in the kitchen and to also have a restroom. And the kids, at that point, she was a young child, they were all playing hide and seek. Well, she decided to go hide in the shower in the little trailer. Pull back the little Cherokee man just sitting or standing there smiling real big, and he just wanted to join in on the fun that the kids were having. Scared the you know what out of her. She went running
Yes.
to Daddy, but she's never forgotten that. And those are some of the kinds of stories that I began to hear after I did my book. So,
Ah.
but it takes a long time for them to trust you.
Yes.
One thing that's true of everybody. That's not just the Cherokee.
Oh, no, for sure. And I think too, there's just a lot of oral history that some of it they're allowed to talk about. Some of it you'll often hear them say, "We're not allowed to talk about that." You know,
I
that just
find it more. I know I hear that, but I hear what's more common is
yeah.
that the main culture, basically the white people, would laugh at them when they would talk about the little people and dismiss it.
Yes.
And so they wouldn't talk about it with the white people because they didn't want to be laughed at.
Mhm.
That's probably as true as anything else.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
so
So who are the little people? Like who are this race of beings? Because it seems that there are indigenous cultures all over the world that have experiences with them, and it goes
they,
back way back to the Celts and the Greeks and
well, the little people are not like fairies. They're not like little teeny tiny people.
yes.
They're about 3.5 feet tall. They
Mhm.
look very similar to the Cherokee people, which is the reason they're known as Cherokee Little People. Um, but what another thing, and again, I'm going off on stuff I don't usually talk about.
That's okay.
Um, there was a man, I guess I came in contact with him when he was in his 70s. But when he was a boy of about 5, he was here when there was a major, major flood, and it
Mm,
was a historic flood back in 1940, and it was washing away just, mountainsides.
mm.
And he found what he called a little lead head, and it was not that big. It was about maybe an inch and a quarter in length. It had a face on each side of it. It had been washed up from the very deep down, it had to be really old because it was so deep in the ground,
Mhm.
and it looked like a leprechaun. And I have a picture of it in my book. There's a leprechaun face on each side. They're not exactly identical, but they're close. And there's a seam on around the edge of it. So this had been molded and pieced together in some ancient time.
Mm.
Now, I have that tidbit in my head. And then I hear from some of the Cherokee that there used to be another race of little people that the Cherokee people didn't like, and they would kill them. And they
Oh,
describe, yeah, I know. When I heard that, I'm going,
uh-huh.
you got to be kidding me. Why would they do that?
Yeah.
They were described as having red whiskers. Now, you take red whiskers, you take the stories from Ireland with the
Yes.
leprechauns, often
Yes.
have the red features. This
Yes.
little face had the um, nose like a leprechaun, pointed ears, a bit like a leprechaun. And I have a picture in the book of a leprechaun's profile and this little medallion. And it's kind of convincing that it looked like a leprechaun. So we may have, in ancient times, had two kinds of little people in the area.
That doesn't surprise me because I know that there are, Celtic stories of, little people of sorts. Like this seems to be, a worldwide thing, but the appearances are indeed very different. But one thing that isn't, that seems to be the same is the mischievous behavior that they can exhibit. You know, they can either protect you, or if you don't like you, they can cause you some strife, but they are very playful and can be very mischievous. That seems to be a theme that resonates without like throughout the different cultures, anything that I've read. So
One
what
of
I
the men
really
that I interviewed lives in eastern Tennessee. Now, you have to really know your geography around here.
Mhm.
Eastern Tennessee is north of where I am in North Carolina.
Yes.
And his family has lived on the land where he is at for at least 200 years. It's
Wow.
beautiful land, rolling land with forest right along a river.
Mm.
And so I was out there hearing all his stories and found out that he has some Indian blood in him,
Mhm.
though he passes as a white man. And the family has known about the little people in their land, I guess, like forever. And one of the cute stories, which fits in with what you were saying, was he was out in the wooded part of his land one day, and all of a sudden, swinging down like this is a little leprechaun young man. So his face was looking at his face. One was up, he was upside down, and he had done that on purpose. He wanted to see the man's blue eyes, and but that
Wow.
was mischievous. I mean, to hang in a tree and wait
Yeah.
for somebody and then swing down like this—that's
Yes.
pure. He wasn't
Scare the
trying to cause
bejesus
trouble.
out of you.
Oh yeah, it would, it would. You know,
Yeah.
and the man in the little man in the shower would startle you,
Mhm.
you know, also. But neither one of them meant to do anything harmful.
Right.
I have found that both with the little people and with the Bigfoot, and with human beings, it
Yeah.
is usually the teenage boys that cause most of the mischief. Um,
Yes. That's
and
so
it's true. It's true with the Bigfoot. It's true with the little people.
yes,
So
it just
for
seems
what
to be
it,
something in the hormones.
yeah,
Henry, he's asking how tall are they?
3.5 feet tall.
Okay, that's super interesting. So yeah, that's about I guess average. I've read some accounts in the past where some of them will go up to the knee. I guess as must just be
I almost think you're getting into a different kind of creature than what I'm
mm,
talking about. Because
right.
you do hear about fairies, you do and gnomes and different things that are
Yes,
much smaller. But
yes.
what I'm talking about are consistently in that size range, and they're the ones that have the name the Cherokee Little People.
Okay, okay. So
Now,
Jim
wait a
says,
second. Before you go off anywhere else, let me get back on the other part. We talked about the
okay,
mischief. Let me talk about upsetting the little people. I
right.
was out in South Dakota. I was on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. I was very fortunate to have, quite by chance, connected with a woman whose grandfather had been a shaman. Her brother was a shaman, and she
Mhm.
was very intuitive, but she didn't have any title to go with it. And she told me the story about, uh, well, she told me several, but basically, they would go out to this creek to swim in the creek and fish. And her, I believe it was her cousins, again, the boys, and the boys found a cave, a small cave, off of this little creek on their reservation. They went into it. They found a little bow and arrows, and the what do you call it? That they put the arrows in the quiver. They found a little quiver and the arrows and the bows, and they took them and they brought them back to their grandfather. And their grandfather said, "You take those back
Oh
because you
boy.
don't mess with the things with the little people."
Hmm.
For some time after that, um, the people were having all sorts of trouble, with the little people messing with their chickens and doing all sorts of things. And I
Hmm.
actually side with the little people. They're not very big. If you're going to
Hmm.
mess with their stuff, they can't object the way a full size human being could. And so they do it in indirect ways, and people learn that you don't mess with them. And that's the
Hmm.
most negative negative story that I've heard about their behavior.
Which really is pretty warranted when you think
Yes, it
about the
was.
fact
It
that
was.
one of their graves was,
It wasn't a
or
grave. It's apparently a
resting
very
place.
active. It was a very active place where they lived. It was an
Oh,
active
so
cave. It
bones.
was
I
an
made
active. Oh no, these are active little people, and those were their arrows and their bows and their quivers.
God at the bows. Oh, right. So yeah, so they're just like, hey,
We'll
okay,
leave our
so
stuff alone. Yeah.
you're infringed. Yes, yes.
You thought I
Be-
said bones as in
I
skeletons.
did, I did, I did. Yes. So Jim was talk about experience in Manitoulin Island, which I have been, and
So why? Not that many people have been there.
no, oh,
You
I
live
love it.
closer to it.
I only lived about, I grew up only about, I would say, less than an hour away. So I
It's
spent some time
beautiful.
there. Oh, it is. It is one of the only places that has, an island within an island. People don't realize that. But he said he ran into some little people, and he goes, he little person goes, stole my Armani sunglasses by knocking them off my head with a branch. I looked for them and with his mastiffs, his dogs, for 5 hours at no luck. Went to my niche elder, who told me how to get them back. Because it was a strange story, but he did get them back. And he basically says they are us in a compact version, according to what I was taught by the. I'm going to butcher this name. The Anishinabek.
I'm
I
not
know.
going to help you. I don't know either.
Okay. Well, I'm doing my best, Jim. So anyway, around here. So yeah, I totally am lost on the lead candy at a tree as they appreciate. Oh, leaving candy at a tree what they would appreciate. Yes, I can see that. So they like the treats, but it's funny how they'd knock them off your head with a branch. It's just another one of those little mischievous.
If he used the treat, did he get the glasses back?
Yeah, that's what he said. He goes, I got them back in the niche. Okay, thank you, Jim. He goes, he did get them back, and it's a strange story in itself. But so out there, you leave candy and you get some brownie points, I guess, which is awesome.
Wow. Wow.
Yes.
And his
So
first name is Jim. Is that what it said?
yeah, Jim
Well,
Rolo.
Jim,
Oh
if you
yeah.
want to send me your contacts or your story, maybe we could put that on our website.
Ah,
So
yes,
if you can put contact information for him, I'll.
yes,
Okay.
yes. I will do that. Just send me that. I will have a look. See here. I will put it up.
If you
So
go to skyshipsovercashers.com under Editor's Corner, or how to report, there's contact information on the left-hand side.
okay, so we'll put that up here as well. So it's just hold on. Sky ships plural, right?
Correct.
Over chcashiers.com. So that is
And cashiers is spelled like the cashier at the grocery store.
yes. So Sky ships over cashiers. There we go.
Or you can go at Gmail. Let's see if I got that right. At gmail.com. You can send stuff that way too.
Okay. I'll just put this over here. And what I'm also going to do is I will put it in the stream so Jim can copy and paste that. I actually subscribe to your newsletter that goes out. And I love the stuff that comes in. Here we
go. And it's basically like a notification. I usually send it out once a week. And it just gives you a taste of what the latest postings are about.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I've even featured some of your stuff in some of my open mics.
Good, because the whole reason for doing it is to get information out.
Yeah. Well, I put it right out there and I just send people over. It's just like, so this is courtesy of.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're very welcome. So there you go, guys. It is up in it came up in some of the chats. So
because that's a cute story. It goes right up there with the little guy in the shower.
See, you're going to have to do a revised version of your book. Right. So I know. It's like, no,
I know.
Yes,
I say that there's a lot to doing books. It's a little easier to do things on the website.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine it is. So where typically do you find, little people as per, the Cherokee history?
Let me describe the area. I live in Western North Carolina. I'm in the mountains. The little people and the Bigfoot like to be in the mountains, in the woods where there are caves. And we have the caves, the forest, and the mountains. And so it's also where we have secret underground military bases, because the military has been able to expand on some of those underground caverns also. So the caves are a big draw.
Funny that, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny that you say that. I think a lot of the national parks have that for sure. But I know in Canada, we have family who have 100 acres, and there's caves, and there's Bigfoot, and there's also not far from there an underground military base. So I tend that they think that they settle around, places where there are known to be a degree of, shall we say, high strangeness within there to try to tap into that as well.
I think the Bigfoot and the little people were here first.
Absolutely,
You know,
100%, which
and
is why I think that they tend to military, that is, kind of sneak into places where they're close to some of that. You look at Land Between the Lakes, which I think is out your way, where there's high levels of Bigfoot and dogman activity, and also military.
I think the cave is the common denominator. I really do.
You do, eh?
Hmm.
So
Yep.
why do you think?
Well, the book that I did about secret underground bases hidden in North Carolina mountains, they're all underground deep. And I just think it's easier to expand on the caves.
Yes, you're not wrong. I would agree with
And
you
you're
on that.
also right about public land because of the 5 bases that I've learned about, one is under the Smoky Mountain National Park.
Hmm.
One is under Mount Mitchell, which is the tallest mountain east of the Mississippi. One
Mm.
is adjacent to Chimney Rock State Park.
Hmm.
One is in the Linville Gorge, which some people may know um, because the brown lights are known um, in that
Hmm.
area.
Yes.
And then there's the one under the Blue Ridge Parkway where Perry is. And
Hmm.
Perry is the Pisgah Astronomical Research Institute. 6 stories deep, and it supposedly used to be, part of the Department of Defense during the Cold War.
Hmm.
So I think we're
Funny that.
being deceived in many ways, but
Mm. Funny that.
they're all underground.
They are. They are. I mean, you hear stories that military will capture certain beings, I guess. Again, Land Between the Lakes, there have been witnesses that have seen them taking away a dog man. Bigfoot, you see them taking Bigfoot on a regular basis. Be interesting to see what kind of a cache of beings that they have in some of these facilities.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes, it's out there. It's out there. I mean, when you have witnesses, it's really interesting. You should research because it is, I think, not like out your neck of the woods down that way, the Land Between the Lakes. When you look at all of that, because people used to live up there, and somewhere along the line, it became we're like, no, it's too dangerous with the amount of things that were happening, and especially the attacks, because apparently the Bigfoot in the area are a bit aggressive, probably because there's sharing space with these alleged dogman, which again, multiple witnesses have been going on for decades. But military came in and went, that's it. This was be more of a national park now. People just can't live here. And the attacks still kept happening, and they still apparently happen to this day.
Is it more associated with the dogmen or with the Bigfoot or both?
Both, both,
Both.
both.
Now, the experience around here has not been negative regarding the Bigfoot.
Most of the
Uh,
time, it's not. I was quite surprised to hear this.
so they have, if generally, they've been very upset by something that humans have done if they're going to be aggressive.
Yes. Well, they could be upset because there's aggressive dogmen in there too, throwing the balance off. Like if you read up on it, it'll tell you that they're warring. You
They're
get
what?
one that they're at war. Like you have
Oh,
one, you get a group of, let's say, dogmen will be in the north and Bigfoot in the south, or it could be vice versa. And that they have been people who have camped out there could hear things at night, which is not just typical, Bigfoot communication and sounds. It sounds like there's a lot of aggression, and that they don't sound the same.
I've never heard anything good about dogmen. Have you?
No. No, no,
And yet
not at all.
I've collected a lot of nice, almost tender stories about the Bigfoot
Oh,
because I have to be cautious. In many ways, they're very human, and I mean human in the best sense of the word, not the way most of us see on TV. I'm going,
yes,
we humans are pretty bad some of the time here.
yes,
But
yes,
they have families, and they're very, I've seen so many nice, gentle stories. So
yes. And and that we're going to talk about that today as well. So before we branch off into Bigfoot,
I'm not
uh,
staying in line, am I?
Right?
I'm
No.
not staying in line with the agenda here.
Oh, no, I just wanna make sure that we get out all the information. So with little people, there's so many, there's so many different types of because you're dealing with different personalities. They're like people, right? So they're just different in size. Are there stories? Because you do get those with Bigfoot, and we'll kinda segue into that, but, where with Bigfoot, you see that some families actually connect. They have good relationships with them. They leave food out for them, and Bigfoot tends to become territorial of their property, protecting the property. Stories like that. Does the same thing sort of go with little people once they're in an area and if humans sort of move into that area? Um, do they? Is there any known
This
relationship, shall we say?
Well, like the old timers among the Cherokee will put the food out for them. So clearly there's some interaction going
Something.
with them. But the stories that I get where you really have a complete story and a real interaction like friends, I'm hearing from the Bigfoot about the Bigfoot.
Okay.
And I'll just share one of those stories. There was a man who was an assistant deputy sheriff down in Florida. He got
Mm.
cancer. He wasn't old, but he,
Yes.
he had to retire early. He came up here with the idea of getting healthy in the mountains. He started growing organic food. He was off an old logging road here in the mountains.
Mhm.
And I don't know how it exactly started. Well, I do, but it's too long.
Mhm.
But one night he was sitting out on his porch and he had a light by the place where he parked his car. And he saw a family going across at night on his road. So there was mama, papa, and two teenagers. Well, that suddenly explained to him why he had heard what he thought were children playing in the stream. And he knew no children lived around there. So it had to
Yes.
have been these Bigfoot children that he
Yes.
first heard. So he put that together. He
Yes.
eventually became friends with the male Bigfoot. The male Bigfoot would come down to the garden when he would garden. He shared food with the Bigfoot, um, and they communicated telepathically. And
Yes.
he became so friendly with him that he gave him a nickname and called him Fred. And
Yes.
so Fred and his family were very much involved with this man's life. So those are
I
the
love
kind of
that.
gentle stories that I have heard more than I have heard the creepy,
Of
scary.
aggression. Yeah, I don't often hear bad stories or negative stories about Bigfoot. Now, I don't say that they're not out there, but I tend to put myself in a certain situation. Let's say if I was being chased or I had my family nearby and somebody was coming into my space, I might be a little aggressive, you know?
Absolutely. And the people who've had the worst encounters with Bigfoot almost always are men with guns.
Yes. Yes.
So I thoroughly understand.
Yes. Well, I mean, and there are some places where it's off limits to shoot them. I read that the state of California actually put up that it's you cannot kill them. You could be
That's
tried for
correct.
murder.
That's
There you
correct.
go.
Yeah.
And other states are following suit with this, you know?
Some time ago, I had more details in my head regarding that, but yes, that's true.
Mhm. Yes. Okay, so let's jump to Bigfoot. Where do you want to start with that?
Okay. My head is so full of stuff, I'm trying to figure out what to start with.
Anywhere you want to go. Anywhere you want to go. Let's just have fun with it.
Um, I will tell you about the first time that I went to a Bigfoot cave.
Okay.
And there was a man who's lived here all of his life. He and
Mhm.
his family live up at the top of one of the mountains, not that far from Cashers. It's a dirt road to get there, and it's single lane.
Mhm.
And he took me there, and we got out, and he gets a sickle, one of those things that you
Yeah.
cut. And I'm going, oh dear, what's this about? Well, he only got it out because he thought he might have to cut a path part of the way. So it
Mhm.
wasn't like a weapon of defense. So we
Yes.
start walking off into this woods, headed toward the cave he's taking me to. And we heard this sound that I can only describe as like a mechanical kind of bird. It was like a
Mm.
bird that didn't sound like a bird ought to sound like. And it
Right.
was right there. And where we saw it, we saw two very large footprints on the incline. And then
Mm.
off in the distance where we were headed, there was like an answer with that same kind of bird sound. And
Mm.
my conclusion was that one Bigfoot was warning the rest of the Bigfoot that some humans were headed in their direction. After after those two sounds, we didn't hear any more. But when you put that together with the footprints, you go, this looks pretty real. So the cave was maybe a half mile, not more than that, from the road. And we get there, and it's a good sized cave. It's about 8 feet across and 5 feet high, almost like a rock slab here and rocks on each side. You could not see to the back of it. Now, this is where you find out that I'm not as brave as I'd like to be sometimes. I wasn't going to go in that cave for anything in the world. I took a picture of it.
Yes.
But not only did I not know what to do if I ran into a Bigfoot, but we also have mountain lions and bears and many other things. And I just didn't want to.
Well, that's good old common sense there, I think.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're really stepping into, right?
I didn't. I did not know. But I did get a picture of it, and I do include it in the book.
Right. Oh, boy. Yeah, I think at that point, common sense has to prevail because you're deep into the woods, and you could end up in a lot of trouble otherwise, just from things like mountain lions, which are everywhere, and other things, you know.
But we also had fun doing, and there's a gal, I should give her full credit. Her name is Glennis Heenan. She once lived in Cashers. And, excuse me, and she helped us with some wonderful experiments. We wanted to find out what the Bigfoot would eat, and we knew where the path was that they often traveled. And so she would put out different kinds of food to see what they liked. And we would put the food out in, I don't know, the coolers that you have a 6-pack in.
Yes,
and we put the food in there, and we tip the lid so they could see what was in it.
Yes.
Now, an interesting thing was we put things out in a cooler with a handle. We put things out in a basket with a handle. In both cases, they would tip it over and then take the stuff. One time, the food was put out in a basket without a handle. They took the entire basket. My conclusion, whether it's right or wrong, is that they'd have some kind of experience maybe getting their hand in a trap.
Oh, okay. That would make a lot of sense.
They would not reach into anything that had a handle on it, but they took the basket without the handle, and then we found it further down the road. And then through those experiments, we found out the foods that they liked and what foods they didn't like. And they're a little bit like human children, and their favorite thing at the top of the list is apples and nuts and fruits and things like that. They literally spit out the asparagus.
I can't blame them on that.
You have to have a lot. You have to cook that and have a lot of seasoning to make asparagus.
It's true.
So
They know that.
They reacted just like you or I probably would.
Yeah, don't touch those. Very good. Oh, that's funny.
I did another experiment. For some reason, I decided to do a wood burning. I think the one I put out there was of like a butterfly because they're into exchanging gifts.
Yes.
So we put that out there, and we did it just before Christmas, and they took it, or one of them took it, and we were all gone for about 2 weeks.
Oh.
And they returned it, and we kept thinking, is it possible that they somehow thought that by taking that we had been upset, and they returned it?
Oh my!
I don't know if that's possible. It's my human brain trying to put logic to their behavior. But that's what happened.
Well,
and, it's
really telepathically communicate with you. I think they're on a pretty advanced level. So I think it's very possible that you could be correct on that.
That's a feeling I have.
Yeah. Did you start going back? Like,
Yes. Yeah, things picked up again. We just did lots of experiments, and it was just kind of fun.
Yes. I would think that would give you an opportunity to start a dialogue. Did you try to do any telepathic communication?
I live about 45 minutes away.
Yeah.
It's not as easy for me to be up there and have this active interaction.
Yes.
And I made frequent trips up there, but we depended so much on Glennis. And I don't know if things could have developed more or not. I just really do not know. I suspect so, based on other people's stories.
Yes. Yeah, it would seem like you had something pretty good going. So, And is there anything up in your area? Do you have
Well,
anything close?
I'm like 45 minutes away from Cashiers when you're driving at the most,
Right.
and we're in the mountains. But those are just higher mountains than I'm in. So,
Yes.
but
Yes.
it's all mountainous here.
Yes. So do you have anything, any sort of I say cryptids, I guess. I don't know. Sometimes I find
Where
even
I live here,
yeah.
there's one gal, and she's a massage therapist in the area. She's been here for many years, and she likes to hike here in the mountains. And
Mhm.
if you look out my bedroom window and look up toward the north, you will see the Blue Ridge Parkway.
Yes.
And she was up there, so that's fairly close to where I am.
Yes.
And she found, like the structures that
Yes.
the Bigfoot make not far from where I am. So
Oh,
I
okay.
imagine if I was more of a camper, I might have more experiences.
Have you tried just, doing the same
I'm a little
experiments?
bit limited right now. I'm a caretaker right now, so
Oh, right,
the
right.
adventure part of me has to be a little bit more contained.
Yeah, if you're in the mountains, you might be able to just draw them to you, though.
Good thought.
It's like, not sure I'm going to go for it just yet, but yeah, it could work.
No, no, no. It's a good thought, and
Yeah.
I will tell you that if I saw a Bigfoot across the field where I live, and we both slowly could approach each other, I
Yes.
probably would be fine with that. If one suddenly appeared at my door, it'd probably just absolutely have my heart pounding a
You,
zillion miles an hour.
you'd have
Um,
a stroke. I can see something like that.
even
As,
though I believe them, and even though I believe that they're mostly friendly around here,
yeah.
it would still be a shock to the system if it was sudden. And so I
Yes.
like the idea of like one of these dramatic scenes from a movie, seeing somebody from across the field and you slowly come together.
I think that's anybody. I mean, you could be very well researched and very seasoned, and you could be a total rookie. I think seeing anything of that stature just outside
Your door.
outside your door would be a little much. I had worked with a family a few years ago. I've only told this story a couple of times. But they were known to be in an area, let's say, where there was activity of all types that happened because again, they were near, native land and reservations, and there's just you get a lot of elemental activity. You get all kinds of activity because it's land that cannot easily, be accessed unless you are, unless you live on the property or unless you're native. It's that simple. Not that people don't try, but I think there's some beings out there that just seem to know that they're safer in certain areas than other areas. And anyway, he was out there. They butted up against it. They weren't on the reservation at all. And he was out letting the dog out for the last time that evening. All of a sudden, the dog is just not having it. Dog's pulling back. He's, I'm not going out there to do my business. There's something out here. And it's just this little wiener dog. And he's just fighting it. So he's like, for God's sakes. Okay. So he picks the dog up and he spins around and looks. And there's this tall being, and he said it was actually cloaked, but he could see like this sort of a snout. And
A snout.
yeah, yeah, and he could just see like the eyes glowing a bit, probably from the reflection of the light on the house. He kind of caught like a glimmer of the eyes. So he basically, hightailed it into the house, took the dog. Anyway, this thing comes in, slams at the door, like throws himself at the door.
Look,
And he was sniffing the top of the door frame. That's how high this thing was.
what do you think it was? Because a snout doesn't jive with a Bigfoot.
It does not. I'm thinking maybe possibly a dog man. But that same week they had people calling into the police or yeah, the police department, and there was a craft in the area.
Hmm.
A UFO had been seen in the area, and grays were spotted on a nearby property, a few minutes away. So it seemed like it was a week of highly strange occurrences that were happening within that area. Just a small little community.
Hmm.
Not we're
Let
not
me
looking.
let me jump in here about UFOs.
Yes.
I'm actually deliberately doing a number of stories. I'm trying to spread them out a little bit
Yeah, of course.
about encounter with ETs that are just like us, that look very, very human. They're known
Yeah.
as Nordics or
Yes.
because because of the media, we've gotten locked into this idea that aliens are all the big-eyed, little, short, gray,
They're not.
and they're not.
No.
And they're not all. And there are many ETs that can blend in with humans. Some of them not as well as others. For example, you probably have heard of Charles Hall. He's the one that was out in Area 51 and interacted with the tall whites. Now, the tall whites are rather skinny, and they look human, but they don't at the same time. And when they would visit, there's a place near Area 51 where they would come in almost like on a tour bus of the galaxy. And this is one of the places they would go. The government knows about it, and they cooperated with them. And the female tall whites like to get clothes ordered for them from Sears Roebuck, and they would try to get dressed up and look like humans, and they would be taken to Las Vegas, because Las Vegas has a lot of strangeness, and they'd have a greater chance of
blending in.
So he told stories about especially the females liking to go in there and trying to blend in. But there are those, like many call them the Pleiadians and the Nordics, that look like us, and they will blend in. And you'd have to really, really be very astute to be able to tell the difference.
Yes, and well, I mean,
I don't want people being afraid of little grays all the time. That is not the major image of ETs.
I'm an experiencer of different races. Very fortunate, and I find that there's so much rhetoric out there that it made me very nervous at first to realize, because now I look at a lot of my even paranormal experiences, even growing up, realizing some of this was ET, because I know now as a researcher of this stuff, I see what I was experiencing back then, and I know it's all connected 100%. But I was still, as an adult, about 5-6 years ago, I started realizing, oh my God, okay, I think I'm an experiencer, and that all stemmed from all of incredible people such as yourself coming on the show and saying bam, 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 and I'd be just like, and the light would go off. I'd be just like, I'm pretty sure this happened to me. It's like, I'm pretty much thinking this applies to me over here. So I started learning and researching, going off on a different direction, and all of a sudden, all of this information just started surfacing for me, and I'm just like going, where's all this coming from? I was pretty much directed where I had to go, and things would just started showing up even on the computer, like sidetracking me, and I'd find it, like, you just get moved in certain directions. And so much rhetoric, and I was quite fearful for the experience. And then I started learning about CE5s. I'm thinking, I've never had to do anything like that. I just talk to them, and they're there. It was sort of like, I realized this is a thing. Anybody could do this. Anybody can just telepathically put it out there. I think if you're an experiencer and you've had contact with certain beings, those beings already have that connection to you. But I did find that for the most part, all of the experiences were positive. Like, they weren't negative experiences. If there's any in there, like, I'm certainly not remembering. Like, I don't remember all of that stuff. Like, but I don't want to go for hypnosis either, because I'm just like, once you open that door, like, all the way, you can't close it. So once it's open, right? So not quite there yet, but
there's a couple of people who've had negative experiences being abducted, and that they have said that they saw military people in the background.
So you're dealing with
going on. And so I don't know exactly how to
that's my
deal
lab.
with
That
but,
sounds like, yeah.
So
Yes.
Back to human beings not being nice.
No,
and many of these ETs, especially the Greys, I think a lot of them are just, I think there's a real race of them, but I also think that there are, what do you call them? Biological robots, kind of.
For sure. Yeah. I hear that happens a lot with the little Greys, that some of them are just little artificial intelligence or biologics.
I personally don't know how you distinguish them, but I'm pretty convinced there's a difference.
I think some of them are the really, from what I understand, the really little tiny ones tend to be more biological or like AI sort of things. And the very like, there's no emotion at all to them, which would make
Which is
sense.
robotic. Which is
Yes,
robotic.
exactly. I had an experience with one that was probably about 4 feet, and he just sort of looked at me. I looked at him, and I mean, I was wide awake, and I just said, "Nope." And I rolled over. I was like, "I'm not doing this. And I'm just not ready for this." But when you have to look back, right, to make sure he's gone, and he
Was this
was.
in your was this in your bedroom?
Yes, yes. I mean, the lights were on as well. Like I was just starting to settle in for the evening. And then I had just turned the lights off because I had the light coming in from the street light outside. And this house was 2 stories high, very, very high up because it was an old Gothic revival. It was a manor house. So even the second floor ceilings were very, very,
Or
very
high?
high.
Gotcha.
Yes. So we were up there and there was a church across the street. So there's no lights coming in, but there was a street light out there that was
Where
able.
was this? It sounds like New Orleans. Where were you?
Yeah, no, no, this is up in Canada, up along the
Canada.
Niagara River, where
Okay.
it is known for a lot of activity. I have friends in MUFON out in New York, and they just like it's just a crazy space going, "Ah, damn hell, right it is," you know. And so that was interesting because I could see like the perfect like it wasn't pitch black at all in the room. It was very brightly lit from this light up on the second floor coming in, the street light outside. So it was interesting to me, but I found that there were nights where I could just hear them when they would come in. And I would just say, if I had a long day, I'd be like, oh, I'm just not in the mood. Just wait. Let me fall asleep. Then I don't care. Because I'm too tired to care. So, and all of a sudden, all the noise, everything would just stop, and then I would wake up in the morning even more exhausted than I was the night before. So I'm like, okay, maybe I was out put to work or something. I don't know, but whatever. At least they let me go to sleep. So I never had, if there's anything that freaked me out or malevolent, like I don't have a recollection. And whether this because they don't let me remember, like I have no clue. Like I'm not that well researched into it. I can only tell about the experiences that I have, and I feel there's this degree of respect and backing off when I say back off.
They do.
And yes, and
Well,
and I
that's good to know.
yeah. Oh, I totally didn't have that. I think a lot of it too, and I don't want to take away from people who have not had good experiences, who have those recollections. If I had all my recollections, I might say the same thing. I just don't. So based on that, and I want to take away from everybody else, but I've had, researchers say, well, people panic when they get up there. I mean, and I can't blame them if you are being taken out of your room at night. This is supposed to be where you feel safe. It's supposed to be your sanctuary.
Right.
You're completely vulnerable. Your subconscious is wide open because you're supposed to be at peace and protected here, or you're supposed to feel that anyway. So if something, comes into that space and you're feeling vulnerable, and you're in your gym jams and you're just getting ready to hunker down, and all of a sudden, I
All
could
right.
see
The
where.
one well, apparently it was more than one, but the one that was in your bedroom, what did it look like?
Oh, it was a gray, full
It
on,
was a
about
gray. It was a
about
gray.
4 feet. It had like some kind of a very skin tight suit. You would almost think that skin, but
Right.
you could tell it was, and it had the lenses and everything. So it's just, I was quite at that point. It's like it's the best I could do. Nope. It's like I wasn't trying to be funny. It was just in my mind. I was just like, oh, I'm
Now,
not
the
ready
ones
for this.
that are kind of lumped together as Pleiadians or Nordics, they do not do any of that. They do
Okay,
not.
that's interesting.
They do
Yeah.
not do that. They do not. I mean, that not that I've heard of anyhow. And
Hmm.
they
Yeah.
just so
Yes. Well, I think there are people who have just, what I say, regular experiences. Like I keep thinking you hear about all these people who are just out, like taking a walk, for instance, and then all of a sudden they come across, like I've heard with the Nordics, they come across and there's these two tall, beautiful beings standing there, and this is the experience, and they're out on a trail somewhere. Could be a bit unnerving, but I think you're at least awake and prepared for anything if
All
you're
right.
taking
One of
a
the
walk.
I will make an effort to post it this next week and for you to look at. And
Okay,
the
awesome.
story I've interviewed the man in person quite some
Yeah,
time ago, actually, and
yeah,
he was down in Central America, and
yes,
at the ruins of anyhow at one of the
yes,
ruins, and he and his friend saw a couple of Nordic type ETs, and he said
yes.
they didn't walk, they glided.
Oh,
They were
interesting.
like, but anyhow, that story will get
Yes,
posted for next weekend.
yes. That's so interesting. I guess experiences vary with everyone, and there have been whistleblowers. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? There have been whistleblowers who have come forward with Bigfoot. And I believe whistleblowers, if you're still breathing, if you have permission to say certain things to put out in the public. Otherwise, you're in hiding and,
You're
you know,
talking about military whistleblowers that
yeah, yeah. Usually those are the ones who would say, okay, you could say this or this,
right.
because there are people who've had their lives ruined. There are people who've gone missing. If you're still out there actively, whether you're ex CIA, ex military, if you are actively giving information, again, I think there's a strong belief that there's permission to say certain things and they don't go beyond that. Otherwise, I don't think they would be so actively doing it. But one thing that has come forward with a person who has since, I think, retracted a lot of his information because his family was being threatened, was that he had seen Bigfoot on more than one occasion underground in military bases. So, I mean, we know that they've been taken. We don't know if there's a mutual thing, but the Bigfoot looked like he was actually doing something down there, not just like being held, sort of thing. Do you look at the quantum part of everything with Bigfoot? Like, do you ever look into that? Like Ron Moorhead's whole theory on the quantum thing with them.
Well, I guess the best story that's coming to mind right now is Dr. Johnston, I believe. I'll
Mm.
have to dig up that story. But anyhow, he went from being a non-believer and he evolved, and eventually he got to the point where he saw a Bigfoot disappear into like a, I don't know, in portal or
Portal.
whatever,
Yeah,
just kind of
I've heard that.
disappeared.
Yeah,
And he's come from being a total skeptic,
yeah.
and so you can see how he's evolved.
Mhm.
He's not making this up because he didn't start out from that kind of mindset.
Yes,
And
yes.
not only that, when he was something was, I can't remember what it was, but there was something wrong with him,
Mm.
and the Bigfoot came and did almost like a hands-on healing on him, and he was healed.
Hmm.
So there
See?
are indeed stories like that,
Yeah.
clearly indicating that they're much more evolved.
Yeah.
Another great source, maybe this is one of the best sources. Joan Ocean is known around the world as the best um, dolphin expert. She lives in Hawaii. She
Mhm.
communicates with the dolphins. She swims with the dolphins. And somebody contacted her wanting to know how she communicated with the dolphin because this person wanted to learn how to communicate with the Bigfoot on their land.
Mhm.
Eventually, Joan Ocean went to the mainland and she, I'm sure that the Bigfoot must have known, but she connected with them, with the Bigfoot. But she described them as being like ancient wise ones,
Mhm.
and um, they actually could print. I say write, but they actually could print. She would leave a
Mhm.
notebook there. They would write. Um, she,
Mm.
I don't know. It was just
Yeah.
very interesting.
That it doesn't surprise me. Dolphins tend to be linked to a lot of different research. One that I find interesting and may follow suit with what you're talking about is, have you ever heard of the Order of the Dolphin, which was started by Carl Sagan and other scientists? And basically, what it was is there was a belief that if you could communicate with dolphins, they believe that the dolphins would help them learn a language to be able to communicate with extraterrestrials. And I have heard from people that when crafts come down over the water, that the dolphins will come right up to the crafts and just swim under them and things like that. So that there was this belief that through research that they might be able to link a language. And I thought that's very fascinating. And it comes to mind because you're saying this, I'm kind of going, yeah. So again, if we're looking at Bigfoot on more of a quantum level, and I've heard the whole, like the portal thing a few times now, I'm thinking, you know what? There could be something to all of that.
And she talked about, Joan Ocean talked about this, like a shaman among the Bigfoot.
Yes.
So I think there are degrees of Bigfoot. You know, some are more evolved than others. I don't think they're all the same. Also,
Yes.
I'm going to refer back to the homepage on something you might want to check out. I list the most recent stories on the right-hand side. And about halfway down, there's a story titled Dolphin Expert Sees Underwater UFOs. And this is Joan Ocean. And she talks about the dolphins coming in large groups to her and will take her out to an area where she connects with them. So the dolphins will lead her to
Wow.
to the Bigfoot. So I'm not the Bigfoot, to the
To the
UFOs.
to the UFOs. Isn't that interesting?
But
See, so
that's
there's
one you can
something
find
to that.
really easily. Dolphin Expert Sees Underwater UFOs, and it's on the homepage on the right-hand side, and you can just click on that and take a look at it.
That is fascinating to me, completely fascinating. I truly believe it reminds me of the episode of Star Trek with the whales, where they had to go back in time to get two humpback whales that were known to be two of the last ones in existence because they had a craft come down and they had communicated with whales. But in their time, there were no more whales. And
Mm.
yeah, so they had to save the planet, the whole thing. But I liked it because I resonated with the fact that again, whales being so intelligent and they've been there for forever. They can communicate. There's no prejudice. There's no prejudices.
She interacts with the whales also, but
Yeah,
it's predominantly with the dolphins.
yeah, that's so fascinating. I love it. I seen what looked like a gray and half human with blonde hair. That's
Say that
yeah,
again? Oh,
yeah, yeah.
wow. Well, I think we're a planet of great experimentation.
Hmm.
I think there's all sorts of hybrids that have been created, and we're
Hmm.
probably a form of hybrids also.
I don't doubt that there are hybrids. Absolutely, I don't doubt that there are hybrids. Um, there are a lot of people coming forward who are claiming to be just that, hybrids. So, and if
Yeah.
you are a
And
hybrid,
it's very brave to be able to come out publicly and say, "Hey, I'm a hybrid," because that is too easy
Mhm,
for most people to just poo-hoo. So if they are sincerely hybrids and they're speaking up about it,
mhm.
that's really quite remarkable. I think most of the hybrids stay pretty incognito for the most part.
You almost can't blame them.
No, no, you can't. Another story that I've done that I think is really fascinating is there's a man, he's no longer living, but his name is William Tompkins.
Mhm.
He worked at NASA at the highest levels, and he made it clear before he died that there were ETs at NASA working with the highest up people there, and that this man worked directly with Werner von Braun. Um,
Mm.
so he was at the highest level from the very beginning.
Mhm.
And he said these human, beautiful human looking ETs um, were there working as secretaries, but they would just plant the information in, the engineers' heads when they got stuck, and they
Mhm.
would explain what to do next, and it always worked. But I thought it was really interesting. They only stood out because they looked like beautiful human women. They didn't stand out because they looked like hybrids, and they never described themselves that way. But
Mhm.
so I don't
Mhm.
know. I would. There's a newspaper part of me that always a little bit suspicious, and if
Mhm.
somebody comes out and says they're a hybrid, I always have to measure that with these people who are hybrids who never announce the fact. So I
Yes.
don't know where the truth lies.
I think they're out there. I think there's a lot out there. I think
Oh,
we're.
no, no. I believe that the hybrids exist.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
talking about
yes,
the people who come forward and say they are hybrids.
yes,
Then
yes.
and they may be telling the truth, but I'd have to be a little bit more convinced
Hmm.
because that's not typical.
It's not, but I don't imagine that. You know, you may only be looking at a very small percentage of
Yeah.
people who actually are. And with the way things are, there's a healthy curiosity. You definitely don't want to end up in tucked away, let's say underground somewhere,
No.
being experimented on or being looked at. I mean, I could see why people are in hiding, but I do think we live in a day and age right now where people are they have a healthy curiosity. I think that more is being exposed, or it could be that more people are just sharing the information. Like, do you find because people obviously gravitate to you with stories on all of this because you write about all of it, even like on your website, there's always interesting things coming out. Do you find that there are more sightings? That Bigfoot is making itself a bit more known, not so elusive.
I
Same with
think it's two things. I think one, because of the movies and the media, people are a little bit more willing to talk about experiences they might not have talked about before. That's
Mhm,
certainly a factor. But I also think that they talk about disclosure. I think we are going to see incredible things in the next year or two. Incredible things. And
mhm.
I I think we will live to see full disclosure of ETs. And not because the government comes down and tells you, hey,
Yeah.
I think the government is the last to give the information out.
Yes.
The information always comes up from the grassroots to the
Mm.
point where the government can no longer deny it. And
Yes. Yes.
but I do think that we're headed in that direction. Something
Mm,
I just wrote today. I don't know when I'm going to put it up, but I was listening to something else, and there was
mhm,
this little audio in the middle of it, and it was Stan. Oh, what's his name? Deho, something like that. Um, and it's in his voice. It's very brief,
mhm,
and he
mhm,
talks about the big secret at the Pentagon that's whispered among the highest up that know a lot
mhm.
is that the ancient gods of Samaria are about to come back. Now, that's coming from somebody who's supposedly an insider with
Mhm,
information from the Pentagon. And
mhm.
so I'll be posting that fairly soon, too.
Yes. It's fascinating concept. They've been talking about, the return of the Anunnaki and the ancient Sumerian gods. And it's just like, do you really want them to come back? I mean, if you think about it, Anunnaki pretty
Uh,
much enslaved. They built. They were said.
they did.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
thank God they're not the only type of ETs that are
Yes,
involved with our planet. And
yes,
there are those, again, I keep mentioning the Pleiadians and the Nordic.
yes,
Um,
yes.
they are not trying to do anything bad. And
Exactly.
not only are they trying to protect the planet, I really do think they're trying to help mankind.
Yes,
As far as the Anunnaki goes, I don't know.
yes,
Maybe we better have our defenses ready because they did enslave people, and
yes,
they wanted cheap labor to help them get their gold. So
yes,
yeah,
yes,
so I'm not sure I'd
yes,
want to welcome them with big arms, and maybe the Pentagon isn't either.
yes.
Maybe they're preparing for who
Mm.
knows. I don't know how to get the answer to that one.
There's so much because, everything, all ancient cultures throughout the world, going back thousands of years ago, had connections with the sky people. It's all over the
Oh,
place. I
it's
mean,
everywhere.
petroglyphs,
Back in the
hieroglyphs,
caves, back to the
ancient
caves.
monuments. Yeah,
Right.
exactly. It's everywhere. But somewhere along the lines, something changed because I mean the ancients, they painted, like they emulated what they saw. They put it in their structures, they put it in their writing and their graphics. So somewhere along the line, people seem to think that changed with Roswell. like it's kind of like, oh, okay, all of a sudden it's taboo, can't talk about it, and we're still in that loop where we're trying to come forward with what we're seeing, because I think there would have to be a lot of accountability coming forward if anybody, at that level came out to admit that, yes, we knew about it. And you have people who are abductees kind of saying, okay, wait, you knew? And this is happening to me. This is, so I mean, I think it has to be very strategically done to avoid a whole lot of that chaotic response that comes from
Well,
people.
let's jump again a little bit differently in
Yeah.
preparing people for something. We have a new pope. He appears to be open-minded,
Mm-hmm.
more so than many.
Mm-hmm.
We've heard for years that the UFO information is hidden in the Vatican.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did a story years ago about one of the popes. I've forgotten all the numbers that go after their name anymore. I think it was Pope
Yes.
Paul something or other. And he had a diary that a cleaning maid found after his death. It was buried in a little closet. And he talked about getting visions of, well, Virgin Mary and things
Mm-hmm.
that you might expect, but
Mm-hmm.
also made a reference to alien beings. So
Mm-hmm.
that was quite a long time ago.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and the Vatican also has at least one incredible telescope. I can't tell you the name of it right now, but
Lucifer.
that is it.
It
I
is
don't know why.
Lucifer.
I don't
It's
know
in the
what.
United States.
I don't know
Yeah.
why. I don't know why they chose that name. I really
Yeah.
don't know. I know it's just to
Yeah.
me it's sick, but
Yeah. Well, the light bearer.
true in the purest sense. It's
Yes.
not negative, but for
No.
most of us, that's a very negative word.
Yes.
And but they've been studying the stars, and you know,
Yes.
even Padre Pio, he's the one that a lot of
Yes.
people know about with the stigmata
Yes.
in
The
the hands.
stigmata. That's right.
Um, he believes in ETs.
He did. Yes, he did.
So now
Like,
I preface
how do
all
you
that.
not?
No, wait, I preface that because perhaps this Pope is going to be able to gently carry human beings to an understanding of other life forms,
Mm-hmm.
and it might take somebody like that to help that happen. Did that
I
make
think
any sense? I was kind of going off.
no, it does, because there is so much information out there, and they've had documents going back centuries, a couple thousand years easily, of um of beings from the stars, or those who are already here, like, let's say, the reptilians. Like, they're fully aware of all of this. They're very well aware. And even the last pope spoke about, okay, well, when disclosure happens, we're going to prepare our people for it with counseling and things like that. So I think it's slowly been edging
Hmm.
into the fact that, okay, this is something that is inevitable. There's a lot of people fighting for it. I think the US is one of the last places that are really holding out on it. Because, I mean, we talk about CE5s. Again, something I've mentioned before. I mean, Russian scientists back in the 80s were doing that. They were like, we don't have to go to space. We just call them and they come here. They were coming to one of their bases.
Right.
Like, no, goes, no problem. It's like, oh, that easy, huh? So that's good. So, so it is a thing. I think anybody who holds the key to the past will be able to, shall we say, forge the future.
All right. I think this Pope could be, quote, I'll use biblical terms, shepherd his flock into a new understanding.
Yes. Yes, probably the best way to put it. I think so. We are in a day and age where I think we're becoming open to all of this. I think everything's connected. We have a question. Um, Niche, do ghosts ever mention ETs or spirits?
I can't answer that one. I don't know.
Hmm. I could tell you that working in both fields, that at least half the people I have worked with who thought they were experiencing only paranormal activity also were either experiencers or had sightings, at the very least, of ETs of one
Hmm.
form or another, or had links to it. We were helping a family. Honestly, we just couldn't figure out why they were still getting sightings. I said, "Do you have any military connections in your family?" Like, I'm just going to throw
Good
it out
question.
there.
Good
No.
question.
Yeah, she had a relative who worked at Area 51. Well, I know what you're experiencing. May not quite be what you think it is, though, but it would also explain why we couldn't connect with anything on that level.
There's a woman who she will not let me interview her for a story, but I've known her for years. She's a nice person.
Hmm.
And her father was one of these people involved in the military doing this kind of
Hmm.
mind manipulation kind of thing.
Yes.
And he used her as part of the guinea pig stuff.
Oh
This
boy.
is her father.
Yeah.
She has a implant. I said, well, why don't you take it out? She said, anytime she goes near it or that somebody goes near it, she goes into like a jerky spasm kind of thing. And she's afraid to have it removed. But it all stems from her father being in one of these
Programs.
military
Yeah.
secret dark
Yeah.
programs.
Yes.
Dark,
Yes.
dark.
Using your own family. That's
Oh,
just,
that's so cruel. It is.
it is.
That
It
is
is.
cruel. I can't
I
imagine doing that to a child.
No, it happens all the time. All the time. I've had people who've come
By
on
your
the
own
show.
father. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what makes it really sick.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not the first time I've heard it. We've had people come on the show and talk about it. I was just like, it's hard to get your head around, especially when you come from a loving family. It's really hard to get your
Mhm.
head around. But I mean, it's everywhere out there. It's hard. You're not even scratching the surface, really. You can only really assume as to how deep the rabbit hole goes on that. But I do believe everything is connected. You look at some of these otherworldly beings. I call them, ethereals, whether they be, spirits, whether they be cryptids, whether they just be something interdimensional or multidimensional, whatever the case may be. I believe somehow they're all connected. You look at Bigfoot. Shadow people have been seeing them around them. Shadow people themselves have so many theories as to what they really are, anywhere ranging from dark entities to time travelers. Like
And,
you
and
don't know.
a few other things too.
Exactly, right? And they've been seen around Bigfoot sightings, along with orbs, or along with crafts. And this seems to be something that happens. And again, getting into the quantum stuff, portals, get some of that with ET, you get some of that in the paranormal. Like, it just seems to be a whole circle. Orbs are the big ones. You can only put
Or that's one of those terms that can mean many, many things.
exactly.
I mean, when when uh, when a human goes into spirit form, most it will be appear as an orb.
Yes.
One of the greatest oh man, this is from years ago. There
Hmm.
was almost like a very large meditation somewhere in the Far East. I can't remember where it was.
Hmm.
I do have it in my archives. I probably should dig it up. But they were filming it. And as they filmed it, it would start out with just a few of these orbs. And the
Hmm.
more this meditation went on, there were so many orbs you almost could not see the people.
Hmm.
So by the intent of doing positive meditation, they were drawing
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
spirits.
Yeah, I think if you could
But an
overlook
orb can also be a very physical thing that's like a UFO.
pet dander, it could be pet dander, it could be moisture, it could be, that's what I'm saying, like dust. Like, you have to factor in the environment. I've had people send me pictures and they're camping in June. And they're like, look at this. We can never come back here. I'm like, it's just pollen from the trees. You could tell you're okay. I promise. Don't give up your favorite spot. I think you have to look at everything rationally as well. The orbs get a really bad rap
Because they're
because
being
there
grouped.
are,
They're being grouped,
yes,
and they cover
yes,
it covers too many things.
it does. It does. But
The
the
sun is
fact
an
that
orb if you get complicated or
it's true.
uncomplicated.
It's true. So is a baseball.
Yeah.
Like, I think that if you really factor in the environment when things are happening, and when you're getting one that some of them have faces in them, and some of them just morph, or they'll split in two and come back. And
You've
I've
heard some
seen,
really whopper stories, haven't you?
I have experienced a lot. Yeah,
Have you?
and I mean, we had a house that was haunted, and we had cameras going on because the house would sit vacant, and it was on no forced air, it was all boilers, so nobody's there for 4 months. There's no dust being kicked up, there's nothing, right? And all of a sudden, one New Year's Eve, because we know the lady of the house used to entertain. One New Year's Eve, I don't know, planets were lined up just right, something was going on. And all of a sudden, I am being notified for 7 straight hours of things. Started at 4 on the nose and stopped right after midnight, literally a couple of minutes after midnight. And this was New Year's Eve. And I'm like, what is dinging the cameras? Nobody's been in this house for 4 months, right? And so no bugs, there's no dust being kicked up, there's no forced air dust coming up from vents, no such thing in this house. And orbs were coming out of the lights. They were coming in and out of the mirrors. They were splitting. We had twin orbs doing the same thing, swaying around. They were
Nancy,
going from one area of the house to the other. I'm like clicking record, record, record. I'm trying to screenshot some of this. We had one that had a beautiful lady's face in it, and I'm just going, come on. This is insane, the amount of stuff we're seeing. And all of a sudden, party's over, and it went completely dead.
did you catch much of it
Oh, yeah.
with the camera?
Tons. Yeah.
Did
Well,
you?
it was the security camera. So I'm just downloading this. I had to pay extra just to be able to load everything up. But I'm going, I want to get this stuff. This is crazy. I've been in
Wow.
the field of paranormal for like 2 decades. So when I see something go across the camera, I don't get all excited. But it's like almost like they had, the staff getting ready for things. And then it stops right after midnight, and all of this activity and stuff are going under the table, coming up. I mean, it was insane. I'm just
Wow.
never happened before, never happened after. That was
Wow.
an isolated event. That's it.
Have you got that posted anywhere?
And I do not know. It's all in our private
Have you
photos.
thought about posting it?
I haven't, but if I could try to dig up a couple of good ones for you if you'd like.
I think you ought to put it on yours. I'll do a link to it if you do it.
Yeah, no, I never thought about it. Really,
But no,
it's
do
because it
do
was
it.
our private home too, right? So we just kept
All right.
very.
You figure out a way to introduce it and explain what happened, just like you've been doing right now.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you take some of that. It sounds like you have too much to show for one show, but do some good stuff and put it up on your site someplace.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of
Seriously.
it. If I
And
mean,
if
if there's somebody that's interested in it, I guess
I'm interested, and send me a link if you do it.
I will definitely let you know. So, but it is interesting, in this whole level of what I like to call, as John Keel, coined, high strangeness, because there is so
Is he
much.
the one that coined that? I always heard it out of Linda Moulton Howe, but she's not the original, huh?
And I believe John Keel, from what I remember reading at one point, where he had coined high strangeness, and something I always used and didn't think it was a thing, but it's because it just covers so much ground, things
Hmm.
that are just really out there. So little people has been interesting, and I imagine that you'll get all kinds of new things coming up, and Bigfoot is forever the gift that keeps on
Giving.
giving with that. But it's funny because we've got Don and Darren Yazzie, and they've got a show called Don't Whistle at Night, which is new on our network. And some of the stories they tell about Bigfoot from the Navajo Nation is, I mean, he's got stories of people being dragged off
Hmm.
out of their tent. Just dragged out of a tent by a
Yeah.
Bigfoot. Like they've got some aggressive stories,
Wow.
but I'm just like, oh no, yeah, crazy, crazy stories. So some of it not so friendly. And I tend to wonder if it's just because of again, you have a situation where base nearby.
Mm.
Do you think when you get stories like that, it's because it's the activity of other humans that is making it, one bad apple sort of thing kind of ruins the whole bunch, and everybody else is getting the after effects of bad interaction with other
Possibly.
humans?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't rule out anything anymore.
Yes.
I will.
Yes.
I just want to say one more thing before we sign off, because
Yes.
the book, and it's called Cherokee Little People Were Real. Um, it gets in, and I usually talk about that, and we really haven't. There was like an entire city in this area that was underground, where Western Carolina University is now. And the people who were involved in the construction, every time they were cutting into land that supposedly was virgin land, they would
Yeah.
find these little tunnels. They found the little skeletons. They found those kind of things. So that's where I start with the book. And I was fortunate enough to interview a number of men who were very old at the time that I interviewed them.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody had recorded their stories, and I wanted to save them. That was the reason I did the book. It wasn't that I
Wow.
wanted to do a book. I wanted to save
Mm-hmm.
that information because I knew when they died, those stories would be gone. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the focus of the book. And there's
Yes.
a lot of photos and maps and locations and things like that. So I
Mm-hmm.
only do picture books. I just
Yes.
do books that only have words.
Yes. Yes.
So
You know what? I remember reading about an elderly man who had, after he passed away, people were on his property and they found an entire village on his property in the woods that had been created, that he created for who he called like little people.
no kidding.
And
Wow.
yeah, yeah, there were pictures of it somewhere. Some of the buildings, just a beautiful little town. And I know that there's sometimes people mix, fairy lore with little people lore, because fairies could be adult size and terrifying, and they could be terrifying like Tinkerbell. She had this quite little temper
I
on her,
always
but
think Tinkerbell.
yeah, she's a terrible little jealous thing, but yeah. So I think you get the different ranges of that. And this is true as well. 20 years ago in Indonesian island, scientists discovered fossils of an early human species that stood about 3.5 feet tall.
I think they
Uh,
were smaller
the
than
nick-
that, actually.
yeah,
I
nicknamed
think
the
they were
hobbits.
shorter than that. I really do.
Yes. I think there's a lot that we're yet to discover, and I do believe that something should remain protected, like little people. Like I have to say, I'm a researcher. I believe information gets out there, but if I came across a little place where I knew there were little
I would
people,
want to protect them.
yes, I would not want to let anyone know where they
And
are.
see, when I talk about the Bigfoot, I don't ever pinpoint where they are
Yes, yes.
for that
Well,
very,
you
because I
have,
don't want the
yeah.
people coming with the cameras and the guns and all that who want to have some kind of concrete proof
Mhm,
that they want to kill one, they want to capture one. I don't
they
want
do.
to be a part of any of that.
And I think, telepathically, if you can connect with them, I think they would know what your
They
intentions
do.
are.
They do.
Yes.
And that's why these people that have shows about chasing Bigfoot, they are wasting our time because the
Mhm,
Bigfoot know they're there and what they're up to long before they get there.
mhm.
They're never going to get one.
Yes, exactly.
So
Exactly.
anyhow, it
Yeah,
was a
no,
joy talking to you. I think we get on a roll here. It's sort of like
we do.
sitting with
We covered a lot of
we
ground,
did,
Mary.
we
So
did, we
let's put our heads together and let's think of a more cool topics that you have, because you have so many. And let's do this again. I would love to do
all
that.
righty. You're a joy to talk to. You have a good day.
And you as well, Mary.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye now. Well, everybody, we have come to the end of another fabulous segment here on Beyond the Outer Realm. So, big thank you, of course, to Mary Joyce. Tomorrow, Ben Tayada Ingram, The Mysteries of Curupira, the hidden land of unknown creatures, which inspired Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Lost World. Now, what's cool about that is, how you get synchronicities. I had just finished reading an article about sightings in the Congo, okay, where dinosaurs were sighted, right? So kind of wondering if this is another one of those locations. Thursday is a colleague of mine here on the United Public Radio Network, Sean Kelly. He is the host of Into the Night, and we're going to be talking about different levels of high strangeness in Pennsylvania. Put your seatbelts on. We know Gettysburg's going to be one of those, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So huge thank you to all of you guys for tuning in today. You guys were just fabulous. I love seeing you all, love interacting with you all. You're so much fun. Mish, oh my God, 5 a.m. You're a champion. Anyway, I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Good afternoon. It's still afternoon here for us. And we are going to see you guys hopefully tomorrow night on The Outer Realm. Goodbye.